Jesus looked up to heaven and said, I don't pray for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message, that all may be one, as you, Abba, are in me and I in you. I pray that they may be one in us, so that the world may believe that you sent me. I have given them the glory you gave me, that they may be one, as we are one. I in them, you in me, that they may be made perfect in unity. Then the world will know that you sent me and that you love them as you love me. Abba, I ask that those you gave me may be here with me, so they can see this glory of mine, which is your gift to me because of the love you had for me before the foundation of the world. Righteous One, the world hasn't known you, but I have. And these people know that you sent me. To them I have revealed your name, and I will continue to reveal it so that the love you have for me may live in them, just as I may live in them. Holy wisdom, holy word. Thanks be to God.
So this is a very mystical, woo-woo kind of passage. And there was always kind of a running joke between me and Rich Gamble, that I was mystical. He would be like, you're so mystical. Rich's sermons are about the here and now. They're about the real, urgent, practical ways in which we seek to create the realm of God on earth and act as ambassadors for that realm. Many of you are activists, and while I care deeply about social justice and collective liberation, I would say that I'm more of a mystic. And Rich would sometimes tease me about that. But as I meditated on this deeply mystical prayer of oneness that Jesus prays the night before he's arrested, according to John's gospel, the passage reminded me of Keystone. Mysticism, in my view, even this concept of mystical oneness with the divine, has very practical implications. Right at the beginning, Jesus says, I don't pray for them alone, his disciples. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message, that all may be one. Notice the radical expansiveness of this prayer. Jesus isn't closing a tight circle around his disciples. He says, I don't pray for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message. Jesus is drawing the circle wider, as he has done through his entire ministry, to include everyone, absolutely everyone, even people thousands of years in the future. In this prayer, Jesus is praying for us at Keystone right now. I was looking over my notes from our Day of Discernment on the 18th, and in answer to the first question that we posed, what has been most life-giving about Keystone, some of the answers were people working together for justice, the encouragement and love of the community, acceptance of people however they are, whenever they come to church or if they don't come to church, welcoming absolutely everyone. That radical expansion expansiveness and inclusivity shown by Jesus at the beginning of this scripture passage. No membership requirements, just show up. Or even when you don't show up all the time, come as you are. Jesus' prayer for his disciples and for us is that they all may be one, which is coincidentally the motto of the United Church of Christ, which calls itself a united and uniting church. One of my projects over this past year as your transitional pastor was to take a class in the history and polity. Polity means the organizational structure of how everything is run of the United Church of Christ. And one of the most remarkable things that I learned is that among all the major Protestant denominations in the United States, Methodists, Lutherans, Presbyterians, etc., the United Church of Christ is the only one that hasn't had a major denominational split over those big controversial issues that split other giant denominations, the Lutherans into the ELCA and the Missouri Synod, the Presbyterians into the PCUSA and the PCA. They split over issues of biblical interpretation, ordination of women, same-sex marriage. Meanwhile, the United Church of Christ came together in 1957. It was a combination of congregational churches, evangelical and reformed churches, churches that were very liturgical and had lots of long written prayers and highly structured worship, and churches that didn't. Churches that celebrated communion every week, and churches that celebrated communion once a month or less. Churches with politically conservative congregations, and churches that were liberal or even radical like us. One of the core principles of the United Church of Christ is congregational autonomy, which means the congregation is the one who decides who to call as pastor. It's why I have been able to serve you this past year. How to worship. The congregation decides what requirements they have for membership, what practices they're going to have, what kind of music they're going to have, and so on. The individual congregations and congregational practices vary more widely in the United Church of Christ than any other denomination, and yet they've hung together. So how do these congregations that are so different stay united? How can they proclaim unity? What if true unity isn't about making everybody agree with each other or fit into a one-size-fits-all, but about making space for everyone to be fully seen and loved? Different traditions, different theological voices, different identities under one banner of love. The UCC stays together not because of a lack of differences or even conflicts, but because one of the central beliefs of the United Church of Christ, which is God is still speaking. You've heard that, right? They have like this giant quotation mark and they say, God is still speaking. In other words, in the UCC, people make space for one another to grow and change and evolve and still stay in relationship with each other. We commit to openness. This is a hospitality that goes deeper than just welcoming someone into our space. It's a hospitality that is also deeply compassionate. Compassion is defined by one of my favorite theologians, Reverend Fred Rogers, aka Mr. Rogers, this way: when your heart can sing another's gladness, when your heart can cry another's sadness. That's on your bulletin if you want to quote it later. This kind of compassionate hospitality is more than just welcoming others into the space. It's trying to understand things from their perspective, not just to make space at the table, but to let others participate in setting the table. It's non-hierarchical and it's deeply relational. According to this prayer of Jesus, it is essential to who God is. Hospitality in this way becomes a spiritual discipline. Jesus prays that all may be one, as you, Abba, are in me and I in you. I pray that they may be one in us. To be united and uniting means letting others be fully themselves, not requiring that they conform to our ideas to be welcomed. A couple of weeks ago, I went to the UCC Pacific Northwest Conference annual meeting, and I saw some really difficult conversations happening, some really hard things where congregations grappled with mistakes they had made in their anti-racism efforts. The Guaymas Island UCC had offered a summer camp for kids about the practices and history of the indigenous people of Guaymas Island, who had lived there since time immemorial, as they say, but they had created this whole summer camp without consulting or inviting any of the actual indigenous people who lived on Guaymas Island still. When they realized their mistake, and their insensitivity, to say the least, they humbly went to the local people and asked forgiveness and asked them to come and work with them in the future. I also saw congregations and pastors of color sharing their pain about not feeling welcomed as equals, being welcomed with a kind of condescension. The older, whiter congregations talked about expanding the table, making the table bigger, but they were still hosting the table. The members of color spoke about feeling welcomed only if they conformed to white people's prior assumptions of how to act, how to speak. But what I found encouraging and hopeful was the conference invited Reverend Bianca Davis, a Black woman who had been hurt by her white congregation, to give the sermon on Sunday morning. And folks listened to her prophetic admonitions. They let her presence reshape the room. They listened with humility. They listened with true hospitality. We're learning as a conference, as a congregation, that true unity doesn't mean dividing people into insiders and outsiders. It doesn't say you can come but only on our terms. True unity means come as you are. You belong just as you are, and you can shape the conversation and the culture of this place. True unity is about mutuality and sharing ownership of spaces, letting the Spirit lead, instead of trying to control the agenda. Shortly after Rich Gamble left, I received a letter from a United Church of Christ in Missouri asking for a certificate of transfer of membership. When I asked people what this meant, I learned that many, if not most, UCC churches keep membership rolls. These are people who are members in good standing and can vote at meetings. I was told that at Keystone, we don't have those things. We don't make those distinctions. Everyone who comes is a member. I learned that at congregational meetings, the people assembled can decide to allow everyone a vote. I was told, quote, even if someone has just walked in off the street, they are part of Keystone. One story I heard was about the proposal to take the pews out from the sanctuary and replace them with chairs that could be moved into various configurations, including a circle. Many of you may remember this. The pastor and the congregation thought it was a good idea until a couple of parents of young kids explained how distracting it might be for people to have the kids running around, squirming in plain sight in these circles rather than tucked into the pews. People listened and decided the pews would remain, which is why you're all sitting in pews right now. So not only can everyone be welcomed, but anyone can transform the decisions that are made right then and there. If someone says, I'm part of Keystone, then they are. We don't have a formal list of members of Keystone or a set of membership requirements. We have a spirit of inclusion, of compassionate hospitality, a welcome that reflects Jesus' prayer of mystical oneness with no requirements, only recognition that every so-called visitor already belongs. I believe this is what Jesus meant by the next part of his prayer. I have given them the glory you gave me, that they may be one as we are one. I in them, you in me, that they may be made perfect in unity. Now, we have a lot of associations with the word perfect, but it's not what Jesus meant. The word for perfect comes from the word telos in Greek, which means purpose or goal. It actually refers to the fulfillment of one's purpose. So that they would become exactly who God created them to be. Perfect in unity doesn't mean all the same. It means in their uniqueness, in their messiness, in their diversity. God's glory is revealed through the compassionate hospitality that we provide to each other, which allows each of us to grow into who we truly are. All are welcome, all are included, and all are celebrated. Next week, as you decide on our next steps together, I will be heading out to a 9-day silent contemplative retreat, the kind of mystical activity that Rich used to tease me about sometimes. But like you, I am in a period of deep discernment about the possibility of seeking ordination in the United Church of Christ, which for me means stepping into a lineage of people who have heard Christ's prayer for unity and said yes, not by demanding sameness, but by creating space for difference. A lineage of those who believe that love can be made visible not only in prayer, but in practice, not only in mysticism, but in meals. Shared stories honored and lives lived together side by side in compassion. So as you discern our next steps together, I'll be praying with you in the silence, in the mystery of oneness, in the deep hope that we may continue to become the kind of church that grows in mystical unity, so that God may be glorified when the world sees that love of God made visible in a unity that makes space for everyone, a welcome that reflects the heart of Christ. Amen. Our hymn of reflection